Baby, let me tell you something right from the start. The day your own children make you feel like a stranger in the home you poured your soul into, something inside you breaks. And once it breaks, it never fits back the same way again. I learned that the hard way. Slowly at first, then all at once. I remember standing in my living room that morning, sunlight spilling over the hardwood floors I'd polished 1,000 times, feeling like an unwelcome guest in my own house. My hands were shaking, not from age, but from a quiet kind of hurt that settles deep in your bones. It started with a phone call. One I should have known was trouble the moment I heard my son Marcus's voice. Tight, clipped, too formal for a boy who once ran to me barefoot asking for peanut butter sandwiches. "Ma," he said, clearing his throat, "I need to talk to you about the house." Just like that. "No, how you feeling, Ma? No, you asleep? You okay?" Just business, cold and quick. I sat down slowly at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd taught him his spelling words, where I'd prayed for him when he was off at college, where I'd held his trembling hands after he lost his father. "What about the house, baby?" I asked, trying to keep my voice warm, steady. "Well," he hesitated, "Jasmine thinks, since you're getting older, maybe it's time to downsize. Something more manageable." Ah, there it was. Not even his idea. His wife's. Jasmine, my daughter-in-law, who always spoke to me like I was some elderly woman in the grocery store she didn't want blocking the aisle. Jasmine, who'd never once asked me how my day was, but always had plenty to say about how I should live it. "Downsize?" I repeated, each syllable heavy on my tongue. "Baby, this house is my size. It's my life." A long silence. I could hear him breathing on the other end, the way he used to when he was bracing himself to tell me he'd broken his curfew. "It's just what Jasmine thinks is best," he finally said. "For everyone. Everyone." Funny how everyone didn't seem to include me. My jaw tightened. I felt the old familiar sting behind my eyes, the kind that comes when someone you love forgets you're human. "So your wife thinks it's best to push me out my own home?" I asked. "Ma, don't say it like that." "How else am I supposed to say it, Marcus?" My voice cracked just a little. "Tell me how to say it in a way that don't break my own heart." He sighed, soft and frustrated. "I'm trying to help you." "No, baby," I said. "You're trying to help her feel comfortable, and you don't care if that makes me uncomfortable." There was another silence, the heavy kind this time, the kind where truth hangs between two people like damp laundry nobody wants to claim. "Look," he said finally, "we're coming by this weekend. Jasmine wants to look around, see what could be sold or donated." It hit me like cold water. She was coming to take inventory of my life, my things, my memories. I pressed a hand against my chest, steadying myself. "Marcus," I whispered, "this house is all I have left of your father. Every wall, every picture, every creaking floorboard holds a piece of him. Of us. You can't just—" He cut me off. "Ma, please don't make this harder." I swallowed hard, tasting a bitterness I wasn't familiar with. Betrayal. Not loud or dramatic, just quiet, steady, and suffocating. When the call ended, I sat there in the silent kitchen, my breath trembling, my hands wrapped around a mug that had long gone cold. The house felt different, like its walls knew something had shifted, something sacred had been violated. And in that stillness, I whispered to myself, "Lord, what did I do so wrong that my own child wants to push me out of the home I built with love?" Little did I know. That weekend would reveal a truth much worse than anything I imagined, and it would be the moment everything changed. Baby. If Chapter 1 was the crack in the glass, Chapter 2 is where the whole thing started shattering, because sometimes the real storm doesn't hit with thunder, it comes quietly, in the sound of footsteps you don't recognize anymore, crossing the threshold of your home. Saturday arrived too fast. I barely slept the night before, pacing the hallway, touching the picture frames on the wall the way a mother touches a sleeping child, soft, protective, desperate. Every picture held a piece of a life I'd lived with care. Every corner whispered of memories Marcus seemed ready to toss out like old newspapers. When I heard the doorbell, my stomach tightened. I wiped my palms on my dress and opened the door slowly. There they stood. Marcus, my baby boy, though he was a grown man now, with his eyes avoiding mine like a guilty child. And Jasmine, tall, polished, smelling like expensive perfume and intentions I couldn't trust. She had that sharp smile, the kind that never reached her eyes. "Hi, Mom," Marcus murmured. "Good afternoon, Mother Evelyn," Jasmine said, stepping inside before I invited her. She looked around like she was assessing property value. "Lord, give me strength." I forced a smile. "Come in, I made some tea." "No need," Jasmine said, waving her hand. "We won't be long. Marcus, let's start in the living room." Start? Start what? My heart thumped loudly against my ribs. I followed them, watching as Jasmine pulled out her phone and started taking pictures. Of the sofa, the china cabinet, even the rug. "Why are you taking pictures?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Just documenting what can be sold, donated, or—" "Sold?" My voice rose. "This is my home, Jasmine. These things are mine." "If you plan to move," she replied coolly, "you won't need most of it." Marcus stepped in. "Ma, it's just easier this way." "Easier for who?" I shot back. Jasmine continued walking through the room like she owned it. Then she stopped in front of the old china cabinet, the one my late husband, Harold, bought me on our 10th anniversary. He'd spent 2 months of savings on it, smiling like a proud fool when he surprised me. Jasmine opened the cabinet doors. "Vintage. Could get a good price." That was it. Something inside me snapped. Not loud, not violent, just a quiet break, a mother's heartbreak. "Close that cabinet," I said softly. She turned, eyebrows raised. "Excuse me?" "Close it," I repeated. "You don't touch that." Marcus stepped toward me. "Ma—" I held up my hand. "No, Marcus, not this, not today." Jasmine laughed under her breath, shaking her head. "We're trying to help you transition, Evelyn. This isn't personal." I looked her dead in her eyes. "Baby, it couldn't be more personal." I saw Marcus shift uncomfortably, but he didn't defend me, didn't protect me, didn't even stand beside me. My son, my only child, standing with the woman who wanted to rewrite the story of my life like it was some outdated chapter she couldn't wait to close. Jasmine moved her gaze back to the cabinet and lifted her phone to take another picture. And I, Lord forgive me, gently pushed her arm down. "Don't," I whispered. The room froze. Her eyes widened like I'd committed a crime. "Marcus," she snapped, "did you see that?" Marcus stepped between us, his voice low but firm. "Ma, don't touch her." Oh, baby. Those words were a knife, sharp, unexpected, and aimed right at the softest part of a mother's heart. "I didn't hurt her," I said, my voice breaking. "I just asked her to respect my home." "Your home?" Jasmine scoffed. "Marcus, do you hear this? This is exactly why we need to get things in order before—" "Before what?" I asked. "Before I die? Before I forget who I am? Which one is it, Jasmine?" Marcus closed his eyes. Jasmine pressed her lips together. The silence felt like thunder about to strike, and then Jasmine said it, 4 little words that changed everything. "She's becoming a problem. A problem. Not a mother, not a woman, a problem." My breath caught in my throat, and in that moment, I knew. This wasn't about downsizing. This wasn't about convenience. This was about control. And they were just getting started. Baby, when someone you love calls you a problem, it don't just sting, it hollows you out. Those words echo in your chest long after the room goes quiet. And let me tell you, that afternoon the silence in my living room felt louder than any argument we could have had. I stood there frozen, staring at my son and the woman he chose. Jasmine's words hung in the air like smoke from a fire she'd started. Marcus looked away, like he could escape the weight of what she'd said if he just avoided my eyes. "A problem," I whispered, the hurt thick in my throat. "Is that what I am now?" Marcus rubbed the back of his neck. That boy always did that when he knew he was wrong. "Ma, don't take it like that." "How else am I supposed to take it? I asked, voice trembling. After all I've done for this family? After raising you by myself when your father passed? After paying for your wedding when you two couldn't afford it? After welcoming Jasmine with open arms even when she never truly welcomed me back? Jasmine crossed her arms, tapping her foot. This is exactly what I mean. The guilt trips, the emotional manipulation. Manipulation? I gasped. Baby, I'm telling you how I feel. Marcus stepped closer. Ma, just calm down. Something about that, him telling me to calm down in my own house, shifted something deep inside me. I straightened my back. My voice steadied. No, I said softly. I won't calm down. Not when my own child stands silent while someone calls me a problem in my own home. Jasmine scoffed. We came here to help, but clearly you're not ready for help. Help? I repeated. Baby, what you're offering ain't help, it's control. Marcus shook his head, frustrated. Ma, you're blowing this way out of proportion. We just want you somewhere safer. Safer? I looked around my living room, my sanctuary for over 30 years. This home kept me safe when I was grieving my husband, safe when I worked double shifts to keep a roof over our heads, safe when you were sick as a child and I stayed up all night praying over you. This house ain't just walls, it's my life. Marcus didn't say a word. He didn't have to. His silence screamed louder than anything. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. If y'all want to talk about my future, fine. I'm willing to listen, but not like this, not with demands, not with disrespect. Jasmine rolled her eyes like a teenager. We're adults. We have our own lives. We can't be running over here every time you need something. I looked at her slowly. Jasmine. Baby. Last time I asked for help was 2 years ago when I needed you to pick up a prescription while your husband was out of town, and you told me you were too busy getting your nails done. Her face twitched. Marcus's eyes widened. So no, I continued, I don't think this is about you being overwhelmed with me. I think it's about you being overwhelmed with the idea that I still have independence, that I still have a voice in my own life. Jasmine stepped forward, her tone almost icy. This isn't about voice. This is about planning. Marcus and I have been talking, and if you won't move on your own terms, then we have to make decisions you might not like. Something in my chest clenched, cold, sharp, instinctive. Marcus, I said quietly, is that true? He swallowed hard. Ma, we just don't want things to get complicated later. Complicated. Another cold word. Another word people use when they don't want to say the real thing. A tear slipped down my cheek, one I didn't bother to wipe away. Baby, I never thought the day would come when my own child would talk to me like a burden. Marcus looked down. Jasmine looked satisfied. And I felt something shift inside me. Not weakness, no. Strength. The kind that only surfaces when you realize you've been standing alone longer than you thought. I straightened my shoulders. I heard enough today, y'all can leave. Jasmine blinked. Excuse me? You heard me, baby, I said softly. This visit is over. Marcus looked up, shocked. Ma, you may not respect my home, I said, but you will respect my boundaries. And Lord, the way Jasmine's jaw tightened. You'd think I'd slapped her with the truth. They walked out without another word, but the silence they left behind, it told me one thing clear as day. This was only the beginning of a much bigger fight. Baby. When that door closed behind them, I swear the whole house exhaled with me, like it had been holding its breath, waiting to see how much more I would take. But the truth? I didn't even know how much more I could take. That evening, I moved through my home like a ghost, drifting through memories. My hands touched the back of Harold's old armchair, the one he used to fall asleep in after Sunday dinners. I could almost hear him snoring, deep and steady, like a man who felt safe in the life he'd built with me. I whispered into the quiet, Harold. Baby, what am I supposed to do now? It was a lonely sound, an older woman talking to a memory because the living people she loved didn't see her anymore. And Lord, that loneliness went deeper than bones. I sat at the kitchen table, the same one Marcus and Jasmine had stood beside earlier, judging my life like they were flipping through a clearance catalog. I wrapped my hands around a warm cup of tea and stared at the steam curling upward, tucking myself into the quiet the way a child tucks into a blanket. But the peace didn't last long. My phone buzzed. I looked down. Marcus. My heart fluttered, hope and fear doing battle inside me. Maybe he was calling to apologize. Maybe he remembered he came from a mother who loved him more than breath itself. I answered. Hello? His voice was stiff. Ma. Jasmine's really upset. I closed my eyes. Is she? She said you embarrassed her. I couldn't help it. I laughed, not out of humor but out of disbelief, out of the kind of ache that turns into a bitter sound. Marcus, I said softly, all I did was tell her not to touch the one piece of furniture in this house that holds the last memory of your father. If she call that embarrassment, then baby, that's her spirit talking, not mine. He sighed. Look, we just want what's best for you. There it was again. That phrase, those 5 little words that make grown children feel righteous and make mothers feel erased. Marcus, I said, when did you two decide what was best for me? 'Cause I sure wasn't part of that conversation. He hesitated. We don't want to watch you struggle. Struggle, Lord, give me patience. Marcus, I said gently, I've been paying my own bills, keeping up this house, cooking, cleaning, taking care of myself for years. What struggle are you talking about, baby? He didn't answer. Silence again. Always silence when he knew the truth didn't match the story Jasmine fed him. Finally, he said, Ma. Jasmine thinks you might be getting too emotional lately. I froze, because those words carried a different meaning, a darker meaning. Emotional? I repeated slowly. Yeah, he said, like overwhelmed, maybe even forgetful sometimes. Forgetful. There it was, the seed she was trying to plant. Marcus, I said carefully, are you asking me if I'm losing my mind? No, Ma, not like that. We're just concerned. Concerned. Another cold word. I inhaled deeply. Baby, listen to me. Getting emotional when your home is threatened is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign you still care. And being 72 doesn't make me helpless. It makes me experienced. His voice softened a little. Ma, please, just think about moving in with us. It would make Jasmine feel better. I almost dropped the phone. Make Jasmine feel better, not me, not us, her. My voice was calm when I finally spoke. Marcus, are you asking me to give up my home because your wife feels uncomfortable with me living on my own? He hesitated. I mean, yeah, that's part of it. Baby, that was the moment my heart didn't just crack. It settled into a new shape, a harder one, a wiser one. I'm not moving anywhere, I said firmly. Not today, not next week, not until I decide it's time. Marcus didn't respond. I heard Jasmine in the background, sharp, angry, whispering something I couldn't make out. Marcus hurried off the phone. Love you, Ma, he said quickly like an obligation, and then he hung up. I sat there staring at the empty line, feeling something deep inside me shift again, a realization, a warning, a truth. My son wasn't the same boy I raised, and Jasmine, she wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Baby, some nights sit heavier on your chest than others, and that night, Lord have mercy, that night felt like the whole world was pressing down on me. It wasn't just what Marcus said, it was what he didn't say. A mother hears the truth behind silence, and the quiet after his words told me more than he ever could have spoken. After hanging up, I walked through the house slowly, turning off lights one by one. The shadows stretched long across the floor, touching the memories I had tucked into every corner. I paused at Harold's photo, the one of him smiling wide, his hand resting on my shoulder, his eyes full of pride. Harold, I whispered, touching the frame. "I wish you were here. You would have known how to talk to him. You always did. But grief is a lonely partner, baby. It holds your hand, but it can't fight your battles." I slept badly, waking up every hour, checking the locks on the doors, pacing the hallway. Something felt off, like trouble was creeping around the edges of my life, waiting for a moment to step in. By morning, I was exhausted. I made myself a cup of coffee and sat at the kitchen table, staring out the window. The birds chirped like the world hadn't shifted the day before, like my life wasn't unraveling one thread at a time. Around 9 a.m., I heard footsteps on my porch, heavy ones, male ones. A knock followed, firm, impatient. I felt a chill run through me. When I opened the door, I nearly dropped right where I stood. It was Derek, my nephew. A good man once. Lord knows what he was now, but he was exactly the kind of person I didn't expect to see that morning. "Auntie Ev," he said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Can we talk?" My stomach tightened. Derek never just came by, and I knew that look. Trouble with a capital T. "Come in," I said cautiously. He stepped inside, glancing around like he was studying the place. That made my heart beat faster. "What brings you here, Derek?" I asked. "You don't usually visit unless something's wrong." He hesitated, then sat down. "Marcus called me last night." The room went still, cold. I sat slowly across from him. "What did he say?" Derek looked uncomfortable. "He said you might need more help than you're letting on. That maybe you shouldn't be living here alone anymore." My jaw tightened. "Is that so?" He nodded. "And he asked me to check on you this morning. Make sure you weren't overwhelmed." Overwhelmed. There it was again, that word they were trying to glue onto me. I folded my hands, steadying myself. "Derek, baby, do I look overwhelmed to you?" He looked at me, really looked, and shook his head. "No, you look tired, not crazy, not helpless, just tired." I nodded slowly. "That's all I am." He sighed deeply, rubbing his hands together. "Auntie, look, I don't want to be in the middle of this, but Marcus sounded real serious. Said Jasmine thinks you're declining." Declining. Another cold word thrown onto the pile. I could feel tears threatening my eyes, but I swallowed them down. I wasn't about to break in front of anyone, not even family. "I'm not declining," I said softly. "I'm hurting. There's a difference." Derek leaned forward, voice low. "Auntie, I think Jasmine is trying to build a case." My heart dropped. A case? For what? He looked around, whispering like the walls might hear him. "For taking control of the house, of your decisions, maybe even your medical rights." I felt the blood drain from my face. "No," I said firmly. "No, they wouldn't. Marcus wouldn't." Derek cut me off gently. "Auntie, people change when someone whispers in their ear long enough. And baby," that's when I knew. This wasn't about moving. This wasn't about safety. This was about power. About a daughter-in-law who saw my home as an asset and me as an obstacle. I leaned back, feeling something inside me harden with quiet steel. "Well," I said slowly, "if she's building a case, then I guess it's time I build one of my own. Baby." There comes a moment in every woman's life when she stops crying and starts planning. And that morning, after Derek dropped that truth in my lap, I felt something inside me click into place, a quiet strength, a firm resolve. Like the Lord himself whispered, "Get up, daughter. This battle ain't gonna fight itself." Derek sat across from me, eyes full of worry. He wasn't a perfect man, not by a long shot, but he loved me enough to come tell me the truth. And in times like these, truth is more precious than gold. "A case?" I repeated, my voice low and steady. "She thinks she can build a case against me?" Derek nodded slowly. "From what Marcus said, Jasmine thinks you might be showing signs of decline, confusion, emotional instability, stuff like that." I felt a sharp, hot anger flicker in my chest, an anger I hadn't felt in years. Not sinful anger, but the righteous kind. The kind that rises when someone tries to strip you of the dignity you've earned over a lifetime. "Derek," I said, "did Marcus sound like he believed any of that mess?" He hesitated. "I think he doesn't want to believe it, but Jasmine talks strong. You know how she is." Lord, I did. That woman could talk a crow out of its nest if she wanted to, and Marcus, my sweet boy, had always been too soft-hearted, too eager to keep peace. Then something struck me. "Derek, why'd he call you?" My nephew looked down at his hands. "Because Jasmine said I'm the only sensible relative on your side of the family." I nearly laughed. "Sensible? Lord, that girl don't know this family at all." A faint smile twitched at Derek's lip. "Auntie, I ain't here to defend them. I'm here because I think you need to protect yourself." I folded my arms. "Well, what exactly should I be protecting myself from?" He looked around the house again, slow, thoughtful. "If Jasmine convinces Marcus you're declining mentally, they can petition for conservatorship, or try to force a sale of the house if they argue you can't manage property independently." The words scraped across my heart like sandpaper. To think, after everything, they could legally try to push me out from the home Harold and I built with sweat, grief, and love. I inhaled deeply. "Not while I'm breathing." Derek nodded. "I figured you'd say that." "So what should I do?" I asked. He leaned forward. "Document everything. And Auntie, go see your doctor. Not because anything is wrong, but because you need proof that nothing is." Baby, it stung. Not because I doubted myself, but because I hated that I had to prove my mind was still mine. "I'll make an appointment today," I promised. "And Derek?" "Yes, ma'am." "Don't tell Marcus I know what Jasmine is planning." He nodded. "I won't." We sat in silence for a moment. Then Derek reached across the table and squeezed my hand, something he hadn't done since he was a little boy with skinned knees and a soft heart. "You ain't alone, Auntie." Those words. Lord, they wrapped around me like a warm blanket. After he left, I stood in the middle of my living room and looked around, at the pictures, the furniture, the memories sewn into every inch of that house. I whispered, "They won't take this from me." And I meant it. I grabbed my purse, slipped on my shoes, and headed out the door. I wasn't going to wait around while Jasmine built her little case. I was going to prepare mine. My first stop was Dr. Lewis's office, my physician of 15 years. If anyone could vouch for my mental state, it was him. But baby, what happened in that doctor's office? What he found? What he didn't find? That was the beginning of a whole new layer to this story, one that even I wasn't prepared for. Baby, let me tell you something about walking into a doctor's office when your whole world is shifting under your feet. You hold your head high, straighten your back, and pray the Lord keeps your voice steady, because you know the truth, but you also know somebody out there is trying to rewrite it. When I stepped inside Dr. Lewis's office that morning, the air smelled like antiseptic and old magazines. The walls were still that same soft beige color he'd had for years, and the receptionist, sweet little Carla, smiled at me with her usual warmth. "Morning, Ms. Evelyn," she chirped. "You're here early." I nodded. "Baby, when you got something weighing on your spirit, you don't sleep much." She chuckled. "Dr. Lewis will see you in just a minute." I sat down in the waiting room, hands folded tight in my lap. I was 72 years old, grown as grown can get, yet there I was, waiting to prove to the world that my mind hadn't gone wandering somewhere without me. After a few minutes, Dr. Lewis opened the door. He smiled warmly. "Ms. Evelyn, come on back." I walked into his office, the familiar shelves lined with medical books, family photos, and that little model skeleton he always joked about naming. I'd known this man since Marcus was a toddler. He'd seen me through arthritis flares, grief, menopause, and the time Jasmine had told me herbal tea could cure my blood pressure, which nearly landed me in the ER. He gestured for me to sit. "So, what brings you in today?" I hesitated for a moment. Then I decided to speak plainly. I need you to check my mind, doctor. His eyebrows rose. Your mind? Yes, I said. Make sure it's still working the way it should. 'Cause apparently some folks think I'm declining. He leaned back, crossing his arms. Who said that? I sighed. My daughter-in-law. And my son's starting to believe it. Dr. Lewis's face softened. Evelyn, have you felt confused lately? Misplacing things? Forgetting important dates? Baby, I said, I forget where I put my glasses sometimes, but I've been doing that since Clinton was in office. He chuckled. Fair enough. He ran me through a full cognitive evaluation, questions, memory tasks, problem-solving exercises. I answered everything clear as day. Didn't stumble, didn't hesitate, didn't mix up a thing. Afterward, he closed his notebook slowly. Evelyn, he said, your mind is perfectly intact, sharp as ever. Relief washed through me so fast I had to steady myself on the armrest of the chair. But, he added gently, your blood pressure is elevated, and you look exhausted. Are you under stress? I felt my chest tighten. My family is turning against me. Doctor, my own son wants to move me out my home, and I'm scared they trying to make it look like I can't care for myself. His face grew serious. This happens more often than you think. Adult children can panic when they see their parents aging, but sometimes spouses influence things. Oh, she influencing all right, I muttered. She influencing so hard she probably thinks she invented persuasion. He smiled sadly. Here's what I'm going to do. I'll write a full evaluation stating you're mentally sound and capable of managing your own affairs. Keep it somewhere safe. Thank you, I whispered. More than you know. Then he leaned forward. Evelyn, don't let them bully you. You're strong. You survived things most people can't even imagine. Don't let anyone make you doubt your own mind. Baby, those words slid right into my spirit. Strengthened me, anchored me. When I left the office, the sun hit my face like a blessing. I clutched that envelope like it was a shield forged by the Lord himself. But as soon as I pulled into my driveway, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. A white SUV sat parked out front. Jasmine's car. And she was sitting on my porch, legs crossed, arms folded, a little smirk on her face like she had been waiting to ambush me. Lord. My heart dropped straight into my shoes. I stepped out slowly. Jasmine, I said, what are you doing here? She stood up with a smile far too sweet to be real. Oh, Evelyn. We need to talk. And trust me, this conversation is long overdue. Baby. I felt the storm before she even opened her mouth. Baby. When I saw Jasmine standing on my porch that afternoon, I swear the air itself stiffened. Not a breeze, not a bird sound, not even the wind dared to move. Trouble has a presence. You can feel it long before it introduces itself. Jasmine stood there in a pressed blouse, high heels clicking against my wooden porch, arms folded like she owned the place. She didn't even bother pretending this was a friendly visit. No casserole dish, no polite smile, just attitude wrapped in perfume. Well, I said, closing my car door slowly, you picking interesting times to drop by? She looked me up and down, eyes narrowing when she noticed the envelope in my hand. I tried calling Marcus, but he's in meetings, so I figured I'd handle things myself. Handle things. Lord have mercy. I walked past her and unlocked my front door. If you got something to say, Jasmine, come inside and say it. She followed me in, her heels stabbing holes in my peace with every click. I set my purse and the envelope down on the entryway table, but I didn't take off my coat. Not yet. I wasn't planning to get comfortable. Jasmine crossed her arms. We need to discuss your future, Evelyn. My future? I echoed. Baby, you barely acknowledge my present. She scowled. This isn't a joke. You embarrassed me the other day and you made Marcus feel like he had to choose between us. I turned slowly. And you want him to choose you. Is that it? Of course I do. She shot back. I'm his wife. And I'm his mother, I reminded her softly. Her lips curled. Exactly. And you're aging. You're alone. You can't keep living in a big house like this. It's not safe. I stepped a little closer, lowering my voice. Jasmine, this house is safer than your intentions. Her eyes flashed with something sharp, surprise mixed with anger. You really don't get it, do you? Marcus is worried sick about you. I shook my head slowly. Marcus ain't worried. He's pressured. By you. She scoffed. I am trying to help, but you are too stubborn to listen. You need supervision, Evelyn. You need someone with you. And you think that someone should be you? I asked. No, she said bluntly. I think it should be Marcus. And the only way that works is if you move out of this house and into ours. The audacity nearly knocked the air out my lungs. You want me, I said, to pack up my life, to squeeze into a guest room in your house, just so you can oversee me like some child. No, she said sharply. So we can make sure you're not a danger to yourself. My jaw tightened. A danger? What nonsense you talking now? She tilted her head. Derek told us about that episode you had last week. My heart stopped. Episode? Yes, she continued. The emotional outburst, the confusion, Jasmine. My voice came out cold as winter. I didn't have no episode. I had a boundary. She hesitated, but only for a second before pressing on. Well, we're documenting everything, just in case. Documenting. There it was, the word I'd been warned about. I stared at her long enough for the fear to settle into her eyes. Then I smiled. Slow, calm, controlled. Good, I said. I'm documenting everything too. Her face twitched. What does that mean? I walked to the table, picked up the envelope from Dr. Lewis, and held it gently. It means my doctor confirmed today that my mind is just fine, I said. Sharp as ever, so whatever case you think you're building, baby, it's already falling apart. She blinked. Once. Twice. Her confidence cracked right in front of me. I stepped closer, lowering my voice to a whisper. And let me be real clear, Jasmine. If you try to take this house from me, the law will be on my side, not yours. She opened her mouth, closed it, then grabbed her purse with a jerk. This isn't over, she snapped. I nodded. No, baby, it surely ain't. She stormed out, heels pounding down my porch steps, but the moment the door shut behind her, my knees weakened and my breath caught, because even though I'd stood strong, I knew that woman wasn't done, and the storm she was brewing, it was about to get much, much darker. Baby. When Jasmine drove off that day, I stood in my foyer with the envelope still clutched in my hand, and all I could think was, this girl is trying to move like the devil in silk heels. My house was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that don't comfort you, but warns you. I felt it in my spirit. She wasn't backing down, and I needed to be ready. I made myself some chamomile tea, sat in Harold's old chair, and tried to steady my breathing. But my mind kept racing, thoughts quicker than my heartbeat. What if Jasmine tried something sneaky? What if Marcus kept listening to her poison? What if the next knock wasn't family, but the law? Baby, I hadn't felt fear like that since the night Harold died, the kind that crawls under your ribs and settles there, whispering worst-case scenarios. As I sat there, the phone rang, jolting me so hard I nearly spilled my tea. I glanced at the screen. Marcus, Lord, give me strength. I let it ring twice before answering. Hello? His voice came rushed, stressed. Ma, what did you say to Jasmine? I closed my eyes. I told her the truth. What truth? He snapped. That I'm not moving out my home. He let out a breath that sounded like frustration wrapped in fear. Ma, she came to see you because she's scared you're not stable. I sat up straighter. Stable? Baby, I'm more stable than that marriage of yours. I didn't say it to be cruel. I said it because lies need a hard truth to knock them down. Marcus was silent for a long second. You didn't have to be rude to her. Marcus, I said softly, I didn't raise you to stand by while someone disrespects your family. Especially your mama. She wasn't disrespecting you, he insisted. I sighed. She came here to tell me I'm losing my mind. In my own house. Baby, that is disrespect. He muttered something I couldn't catch. Then, look, Ma, I'm coming over tomorrow so we can talk. Jasmine says we need to make a plan. A plan. The words felt like someone pouring cold water down my spine. What kind of plan, Marcus? We'll talk about it tomorrow, he repeated, voice clipped, like he was afraid I'd challenge him. I swallowed the hurt. All right, I'll see you then. He hung up without saying, I love you. That part cut me deeper than anything else. I set the phone down, feeling like the rug had been pulled out from under my feet. I loved that boy more than air, but in that moment, he felt like a stranger wearing my son's face. After a few minutes, I rose from the chair, grabbed my purse again, and walked to my bedroom. I pulled out my old safe, heavy, dusty, tucked away in a corner of my closet. Inside it, I placed the doctor's letter. Then I added Harold's will, my deed, my bank documents, anything that proved my life was mine. Because, baby, when someone tries to take your power, you protect your proof. Later that night, I sat on the edge of my bed and started praying. Not a loud prayer, just a mother's whisper, tired and trembling. Lord, keep my mind sharp, my words steady, and my heart from bitterness. And please, please, don't let my child lose himself to someone who don't see the value in family. I lay down, but sleep didn't come easy. Every sound made me jump. Every creak in the house made me wonder if tomorrow would bring peace or war. By morning, I was sitting at the kitchen table waiting for Marcus, hands folded, back straight, determination wrapped around me like armor. But when his car pulled into the driveway, baby, I wasn't prepared for who got out of the passenger seat, because it wasn't just Marcus. Jasmine stepped out of the car too, holding a clipboard, and she wasn't smiling. Baby. When I saw Jasmine step out of that car with a clipboard in her hand, my heart didn't just sink, it dropped clean through the floor. A clipboard is never just a clipboard, not in family drama, not when someone's trying to take something that belongs to you. Marcus walked ahead of her, shoulders tense, eyes avoiding mine. Jasmine followed behind him like a lawyer ready to serve papers. Her heels clicked sharp against my driveway, each step sounding like trouble spelling out its name. I opened the door, holding it with one hand, but not inviting them in with my spirit. "Morning, Ma," Marcus murmured. "Morning," I said, voice steady even though my chest was tight. "Jasmine." She smiled that thin little smile, the kind that's more of a threat than a greeting. "Good morning, Evelyn. We're here to go over some things." I glanced at her clipboard. "I can see that." We walked into the living room. Marcus sat on the edge of the sofa like a man waiting on a verdict. Jasmine sat straight-backed, smoothing her blouse, positioning herself like she'd practiced this moment in the mirror. I remained standing. "All right," I said. "Let's talk." Jasmine looked at Marcus, then back at me. "We've been doing a lot of thinking and planning." I raised an eyebrow. "Planning without the person you planning about?" She ignored that. "We made a list of the changes we think are necessary for your well-being." I felt the hair stand up on my arms. "My well-being?" "Yes," she said, tapping her clipboard. "First, you'll need to downsize your living situation. This house is too big for someone your age." I smiled, sweet but sharp. "Baby, age don't shrink a house. It only shrinks your patience." Jasmine cleared her throat. "Second, you'll need to assign someone to help manage your finances and important decisions." "Assign?" I repeated. "Like I can't read my own bank statements?" "Evelyn," she said, her tone dropping into that slow, patronizing voice people use when they're talking to children. "We're trying to prevent mistakes before they happen." And baby, that was when I knew they weren't here to talk. They were here to corner me. I looked at Marcus. "Baby, do you believe I can't handle my own business?" He didn't answer right away. That hesitation cut deeper than any yes or no ever could. "I just want you safe," he finally whispered. "Safe from what?" I asked. "From me? From my own mind? Or from your wife's imagination?" Jasmine bristled. "Evelyn, this attitude is exactly what concerns us. You're defensive, emotional, Forgetful. Forgetful, I laughed. Baby, I forgot one thing, how you convinced my son that I'm falling apart. Marcus rubbed his forehead like he was exhausted. Ma, please, don't make this harder. Oh, I'm making it hard? I stepped closer, voice trembling but steady. Marcus, you standing in the home I raised you in, the home your father died in, the home I kept even when my heart was breaking and my pockets were empty. And now you come in here with a clipboard to tell me I don't know how to live? His eyes softened for a split second, but Jasmine jumped in fast. That's why we're here, she said, to make decisions before things get worse. I looked at that clipboard, and something in my spirit told me she had more than ideas on there. What's really on that paper, Jasmine? I asked. She hesitated, just long enough to tell me everything I needed to know. It's a preliminary care plan, she finally admitted. Care plan? I repeated. For who? For you, she said plainly. If you refuse to cooperate, we can petition the court. I held up my hand. Stop right there. Silence swallowed the room. You two came into my home, I said slowly, to threaten legal action against me, your mother, your family. The woman who gave you everything. Marcus opened his mouth, but no sound came out. I walked over to the entryway table, picked up the envelope Dr. Lewis gave me, and held it like a weapon forged in the truth. You want to talk about decline? I said. Let's talk. Jasmine's face paled. I opened the envelope carefully, pulled out the letter, laid it right on the coffee table in front of them. This, I said, tapping the paper, is a professional evaluation stating my mind is sound, my memory is sharp, and I am fully capable of making my own decisions. Marcus stared at it. Jasmine stiffened like someone had thrown cold water on her. So the only thing declining around here, I continued, is the respect in this family. Marcus looked confused, hurt, maybe even ashamed. But Jasmine, she wasn't done. I could see the fire in her eyes. And that's when she said the words that made my stomach drop. This changes nothing. Baby. Right then, I knew. Jasmine wasn't fighting for my well-being. She was fighting for control. Baby. When she said, "This changes nothing," I felt the room tilt under me, like the floor had shifted and I was standing on quicksand. I gripped the back of Harold's old armchair to steady myself. The words weren't just disrespectful, they were a declaration of war. Marcus looked down at the letter, then back at me, like he was trying to measure how much of his mother he was allowed to believe. And Jasmine? She was standing straight, like she owned the very air in the room. I don't understand, Marcus whispered. If the doctor says— I know what the doctor says, baby. I cut him off gently but firmly. And it's true, I'm fine. And you should have been standing with me, not letting her convince you I'm losing my mind. Jasmine stepped closer, clipboard raised like a shield. Evelyn, we're not here to pick a fight. But you have to understand. This is serious. Living alone, managing the house, finances. It's a lot for someone your age. I shook my head slowly, looking at her like she was a child who'd lost her way. Baby, I raised you. I ran a household alone. I've lived through grief, bills, sickness, heartbreak, and you want to tell me I'm too old to handle my own life? She opened her mouth to respond, but I wasn't done. You want to strip me of my home, my independence, my dignity? And why? So you can have control? So your husband can feel less guilty? No, baby, not in my house. Marcus shifted, looking torn. Like he wanted to speak but didn't know which side of his family he belonged to. And in that moment, I realized something. He wasn't a bad boy. He was caught in the middle, afraid of angering his wife. I love you, baby, I said softly, reaching for his hand. But I raised you to stand for what's right, even when it's hard, even when it's uncomfortable. He looked at me then, really looked, and I saw the boy I used to tuck into bed, the boy who scraped his knees and cried on my shoulder. That boy hadn't left entirely, he was just buried under someone else's influence. Jasmine cleared her throat, breaking the moment. "Evelyn, this isn't just about me. Marcus is worried about you." I stepped closer to her, voice calm but steel strong. "Baby, if Marcus is worried about me, let him ask me himself. Don't try to use him like a messenger for your control. I've been handling worry my whole life. I've been handling storms long before you came into it." She opened her mouth, then closed it again, like she realized the fight she wanted wasn't going to be so easy. Marcus rubbed his forehead. "Ma, please." I shook my head. "No, baby. You can't ask me to back down when my home, my independence, my very life is under threat. This isn't about stubbornness. It's about survival." Jasmine's lips thinned. She looked around, eyes scanning the living room like she was plotting her next move. And baby, I knew she was. "You're making this difficult," she said finally, her voice low and sharp. "I've been making it through life, baby. Do you think this is hard?" I asked softly, letting my words land like stones. "Do you think anything I've endured was easy? I've fought for this family, for this house, for my life, and I'm not stopping now." Marcus looked at me then, a flicker of guilt in his eyes. But Jasmine? She stood unmoved, like she was already planning her next ambush. And that's when I realized. The battle had just begun. She wasn't going away. She wasn't backing down. And Marcus... Well, Marcus was still a boy trying to figure out which side of his family he belonged to. I walked over to the window, hands on the sill, looking out at the driveway. The sun was dipping low, casting long shadows across the yard. I whispered to myself, soft but firm, "Lord, I built this home with my own hands. I will not let anyone take it from me, not even my own child if he forgets who raised him. Protect me and give me the strength to fight." Baby. I knew the next steps would be harder, much harder, but I also knew one thing. I would not back down. Baby. After that day, I realized the battle wasn't just outside my door. It had already crept into the very heart of my home. Every corner, every creaking floorboard seemed to whisper warnings. And every picture of Harold smiling at me reminded me why I wouldn't, let anyone take my life apart piece by piece. The next morning, I woke with a heaviness in my chest that coffee couldn't fix. I poured myself a cup, wrapped my hands around the mug, and tried to shake the feeling that I was being watched, judged, measured, like a specimen on a lab table. I heard a knock at the door. Not the usual knock, not the polite knock of a neighbor or a friend. This knock was sharp, precise, deliberate, the kind that says, "I'm here to test you." I opened the door. It was Carla, the receptionist from Dr. Lewis's office. Sweet little thing, always smiling. But today, her eyes were worried, scanning me like she'd seen something she didn't expect. "Ma, can I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside, letting her in. "Of course, baby. What's wrong?" She sat on the sofa, clasping her hands nervously. "It's Dr. Lewis. He wanted me to deliver something to you personally?" I frowned, curiosity piqued. "Something like what?" She handed me a thick envelope. I opened it slowly, feeling the weight of the paper before I even saw the contents. Inside was a letter, stamped and official, from Dr. Lewis's office. It said, in clear, bold words, "To whom it may concern, Ms. Evelyn Harper has been evaluated and found to be fully capable of managing her own affairs, finances, and home. Any attempt to interfere with her rights or her property without her consent may constitute legal infringement." I felt my knees weaken, my chest rise and fall with relief and triumph. I clutched the letter to my chest like a shield, my lips trembling as tears threatened to fall. "You see, Ma?" Carla said softly. "You're protected. No one can just take your life from you." Baby, I wanted to hug her so tight, but I held myself back. I was standing, but inside I felt like I could finally breathe again. Just then my phone buzzed. Marcus. I ignored it, let him stew a little while. I sat at the kitchen table, the envelope in front of me, thinking. Jasmine would see this as a challenge. She wouldn't just back down. That woman thrives on control, on making others feel small. And Marcus, oh baby, Marcus was still caught in her web. He loved me, I knew that. But right now, he couldn't see beyond her influence. I thought about all the years I'd worked to keep this family together, cooking, cleaning, praying, loving without conditions, and now I realized sometimes love isn't just giving. Sometimes love is standing firm, even when it hurts the ones you love. I picked up the envelope again and whispered, "Lord, protect my home, protect my life, give me wisdom, patience, and strength to face what's coming next." I spent the rest of the day cleaning, straightening, and preparing myself, not for Marcus or Jasmine, but for me, for my dignity, for my peace, for the home Harold and I built together. That night, I sat by the window, watching the street lamps flicker on. The house was quiet, but the storm was still coming. And baby, I knew it. Jasmine wouldn't stop. Marcus might still falter. And the fight? Oh Lord, the fight was far from over. But I also knew this. I wasn't alone. I wasn't weak. And I wasn't about to let anyone, no matter how much I loved them, take my life apart from me. I whispered into the dark, my voice steady and calm. Let them come. I am ready. And, baby, the next day would prove just how ready I had to be. Baby. The next morning, I woke up with a tight knot in my chest, the kind that told you trouble was waiting just outside the bedroom door. And sure enough, when I looked out the window, there it was. Marcus's car in the driveway, and next to it, Jasmine's car. My heart sank, but I didn't let it show. I had armor now, the kind built from years of surviving storms, from holding on when everything I loved tried to slip away. I poured myself a cup of coffee, sipped it slowly, and whispered, "Lord, guide me today. Protect me from what they're bringing." I opened the door before they could knock. Marcus stepped forward first, hesitant, like a man walking on thin ice. Jasmine followed behind, clipboard in hand, looking like she owned the world. "Good morning, Ma," Marcus said softly. "Morning, baby," I replied. My voice was calm, even though my chest tightened. Jasmine didn't greet me. She just crossed her arms and said, "We need to go over the plan, Evelyn." I motioned for them to sit, remaining standing myself. I wanted to keep my power where it belonged, right in the center of my living room, where my home was. Marcus sat, eyes downcast. Jasmine perched herself on the arm of the sofa, clipboard ready like she was going to deliver a verdict. "Evelyn," she began, voice clipped, "we need to talk about the changes to your living situation." I smiled softly, letting my fingers brush the edge of Dr. Lewis's letter on the coffee table. "Changes? Baby, the only changes I'm making today are the ones I choose for myself." She blinked, momentarily thrown off. "But Marcus and I cut her off gently, but firmly. "Marcus is my son, and I love him more than life itself. But Marcus isn't running my house. He isn't making decisions for me, and he certainly isn't letting you take over." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "Ma, Jasmine's just trying to help." I shook my head slowly. "Baby, you don't need help from someone who sees you as a tool to control your mother's life." Jasmine's face flushed. "This isn't about control, it's about safety." "Safety?" I echoed, my voice calm but hard as steel. "My home is safer than your intentions, baby, and my mind is sharper than your schemes." I picked up Dr. Lewis's letter and held it in front of them like a shield. "This says it all. I am capable, I am sound, and no one can use fear or manipulation to strip me from my home." Jasmine's lips pressed together. I saw the wheels turning in her mind. She was frustrated, calculating. And Marcus, he was torn, watching the woman he married fight the mother who raised him. "You're being unreasonable," Jasmine finally said, voice shaking with anger now. "No, baby," I said gently, letting my voice carry weight. "I'm being truthful, and sometimes the truth feels unreasonable to people who don't want to hear it." Marcus swallowed hard, eyes darting between us. "Ma, Can we? No, Marcus, I interrupted softly. Not today. Today I'm standing. Tomorrow I'll decide if we talk more. But today, my home, my rules, my life. Jasmine's face hardened. She stood abruptly, clipboard in hand like a sword. You haven't seen the last of this, Evelyn. I nodded. I've been through storms before, baby. I'm still standing, and you will learn that respect is not optional. She shot me one last glare and stormed out the door. Marcus followed silently, avoiding my eyes. I closed the door behind them, my chest heaving but steady. I walked over to the window and looked at my driveway, empty for now. Baby, I realized something then. This battle wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about respect. It was about truth. It was about proving that even in old age, even when people try to write you off, you can still hold your ground. And I knew, deep in my spirit, the fight was far from over. But this time, I was ready. Baby. That night, after the storm of the day had passed, I sat alone in my living room, staring at the glow of the lamp on the side table. The house was quiet, peaceful almost, but my heart wasn't. My mind kept replaying the morning, the way Jasmine had come in like she owned the place, the way Marcus hadn't even stood up for me. I poured myself a cup of tea, the steam rising like a thin veil between me and the world, and I whispered a prayer. Lord, give me patience, give me clarity. Give me the courage to face whatever's coming next. It was funny, baby, how a house can feel both safe and threatening at the same time. These walls had seen laughter, grief, heartbreak, and love. They'd been my fortress and my comfort. But now, those same walls were witnesses to a war I hadn't asked for, a war to protect my own life, my own independence. I thought about Harold, about how he always knew how to handle conflict. He never let anyone push him around, and he never let fear dictate his life. I wanted to be like that. I had to be. For me, for the memories, for the home we built together. I took a deep breath and decided I couldn't wait for the next confrontation. I needed allies, people who saw me, who knew my worth. I picked up the phone and dialed Derek. Derek? I said as soon as he answered, we need a plan. Jasmine's escalating. Marcus, he's still unsure. I need your help. I thought you'd call me, he replied, his voice steady. I've been worried about you, Auntie. I'll come over first thing in the morning. Relief washed over me. Finally, someone who wasn't wrapped up in fear or manipulation, someone I could trust. After hanging up, I walked to the window and looked at the empty street. I thought about Jasmine, about her control, about her plan to take over my life. I clenched my fists. Baby. The fire in my chest wasn't anger anymore. It was resolve. It was determination. It was survival. I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going to be forced out of my home. I wasn't going to be treated like I was helpless, and I wasn't going to let fear rule me. The next morning, Derek arrived just as the sun was peeking over the horizon. He hugged me tightly, and I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Together, we went over the documents, the doctor's letter, everything that could protect me legally. Baby, Derek said, his voice quiet but firm, you have every right to stay here, and we're going to make sure nobody takes that from you. I nodded. I know, but Marcus, I worry about him. I don't want this fight to break him. Derek placed a hand on my shoulder. He'll come around. He just needs to remember who raised him. And baby, he was right. Marcus may have been under Jasmine's influence now, but he wasn't gone. Not yet. We spent the rest of the day organizing, preparing, strategizing. By evening, the house felt stronger, not just because of the papers or the plans, but because I felt stronger. I wasn't just a mother fighting for her home. I was a woman claiming her life, refusing to be pushed aside. And I knew, deep in my heart, that the real battle wasn't about the house anymore. It was about respect, love, and the truth of who I was. The next step would test everything, my patience, my courage, and my heart. But baby, I was ready. Because I wasn't just fighting for my house. I was fighting for myself. Baby, I swear, that week was the longest of my life. Every morning I woke with a tightness in my chest, knowing Jasmine and Marcus might show up unannounced. Every knock on the door made me jump, my heart racing like a drum in the night. But I refused to let fear rule me. Not this time. Derek had been a rock. Every day he came by to help me organize my papers, go over my finances, and review Dr. Lewis's evaluation. He reminded me that I wasn't alone, and baby, let me tell you, that support changed everything. I began to feel like myself again, Evelyn Harper, proud, strong, unshakable, but nothing could prepare me for that afternoon. The doorbell rang just as I was sipping my tea. I didn't even need to look at the peephole to know who it was. Jasmine. I opened the door slowly, and she didn't even smile this time. She stepped in as if she had been invited, clipboard in hand, her eyes scanning the house like she was taking inventory of my life. "Evelyn," she said, voice sharp, "we need to finalize the plan." I raised an eyebrow. The plan? Baby, last I checked, I was still the one living in this house. My rules, my life, my decisions. She scoffed. "You don't see it, do you? Marcus and I are only trying to protect you. You can't do this alone anymore." I felt my hands tighten into fists, but I kept my voice calm. "Jasmine, I've been doing this alone for years. I've managed a home, bills, and this family, and I will continue to do so." Her jaw tightened. "Evelyn, if you refuse to cooperate, we'll have no choice but to involve legal authorities." I felt my blood run cold for a second, but only a second. I picked up Dr. Lewis's letter from the table and held it firmly in front of her. "This," I said slowly, "is your answer. My mind is sound. I am capable. And no legal authority, no clipboard, no plan, and no person can take my life or my home without my consent." Jasmine's eyes flickered with something sharp. Frustration, disbelief, maybe even fear. She opened her mouth, but I didn't give her a chance to speak. "Let me be real clear, baby," I said, taking a step closer, voice calm but firm. "I raised my son to be a man of integrity. I raised him to love and respect family, and if Marcus has forgotten that under your influence, then I will remind him, without shame, without anger, but with truth." She swallowed hard and stepped back, clearly realizing the fight she thought she could win in my living room was slipping away. At that moment, Marcus walked in, eyes wide. He looked at Jasmine, then at me, like he was seeing us both in a new light. "Ma, Jasmine, I raised a hand to stop him. "Baby, listen to me. This isn't about anger. It's about truth. My home, my life, and my dignity are not negotiable." Marcus's shoulders sagged, his lips quivered, like he was remembering something he hadn't thought about in years. Like he was remembering the mother who stayed up nights praying for him, the mother who raised him alone after Harold passed, the mother who never gave up on him. Jasmine's face hardened. "You'll regret this, Evelyn." I didn't flinch. "No, baby, you'll regret underestimating me." She stormed out, slamming the door, and Marcus stood frozen, silent. I walked over to him slowly. "Baby, come sit with me." He did, finally, letting himself lean into the comfort he'd forgotten he could have with me. And in that moment, I knew something powerful. Battles are never just fought with words or documents. They're fought with heart, with courage, and with standing up when everyone else expects you to bow down. I smiled softly at him. "It's not too late, baby. You can still do the right thing." He looked at me then, and for the first time in weeks, I saw the boy I raised. Clear-eyed, guilty, but ready to listen. "Baby." That moment, right there, felt like the beginning of a turning tide. Baby. There are moments in life when you realize the fight isn't about winning. It's about standing firm, about letting your spirit declare, "I will not be moved." And that day, sitting with Marcus in my living room, I felt that truth deep in my bones. The house was quiet after Jasmine stormed out, leaving her heels echo behind like a fading threat. I held Marcus's hand gently, letting him feel the warmth and love that had carried him his whole life. "Ma," he whispered, voice tight with guilt. I didn't know. I didn't realize." I shook my head softly. "Baby, you knew. You just let fear make you forget who you are, who you've been, and who raised you." He swallowed hard, eyes glistening. "I'm sorry, Ma. I never wanted to hurt you." I got caught up in her words, in her fear. I smiled through my own tears. "Baby, we all make mistakes. That's why the Lord gives us chances. But it's never too late to choose right. And right now, you can stand with me." Marcus nodded slowly, taking a deep breath. "I'm here, Ma. I'm not letting her control this anymore." "Baby." My heart lifted like it hadn't in weeks. That one moment, simple, quiet, but powerful, reminded me why I fight, why I endure, why even in my old age I refuse to be invisible. We spent the rest of the afternoon going over the papers again, making sure everything was in order. Derek arrived later to help us organize the legal documents, and together we fortified the house, not just physically but spiritually and emotionally. I looked around at my home, at the photos of Harold and my family, at the furniture we'd built a life around, and I whispered a prayer of gratitude. "Lord," I said softly, "thank you for giving me strength. Thank you for keeping my mind clear, my spirit steadfast. And thank you for showing me that even when people try to take what I love, I can hold on to it." Marcus stood beside me, still holding my hand. "Ma, I understand now. I understand everything." I patted his hand gently. "Baby, you'll learn that life doesn't always make sense. People we love can hurt us intentionally or not, but we have to remember who we are, what we stand for, and the love that built us." That evening, as the sun dipped low and the house filled with a warm golden glow, I felt a peace I hadn't felt in weeks. Jasmine had made her threats, tried her schemes, but we were still here. My home was still mine, my dignity intact. And my son had remembered the truth. I sat by the window sipping my tea, thinking about all the battles I'd faced in life. The grief of losing Harold, the struggles of raising Marcus, the loneliness that sometimes wrapped itself around me like a heavy blanket. But today, I felt alive, strong, seen, baby. If you ever wonder why mothers fight so fiercely for their families, their homes, and their lives, now you know. It's not about stubbornness, it's about love. Love that refuses to be diminished, love that refuses to bow to manipulation, love that stands firm even when the world tries to knock it down. And as I watched Marcus finally sit back on the sofa, relaxed, a soft smile on his face, I whispered to myself and to the Lord above, "I made it. I'm still here. I still have my home. And no one will ever take that from me without a fight. Because, baby, that's what life is. Sometimes the people you love most become the hardest battles you ever face, but with faith, courage, and truth on your side, you can survive anything." And as I closed my eyes that night, listening to the quiet hum of my home, I knew deep in my heart, this was not just a victory for me, it was a victory for love, for dignity, for family, and most of all, for the woman I had always been and will always be.